As well as clinical psychology. So when I present today, I'll be coming from both paradigms, both angles, both specialties, but I will discern or delineate the two so you guys will be able to follow my work. There's a tendency for parents to put all of psychology under the same umbrella. All of psychology doesn't go under the same umbrella. You got to recognize that school psychology is different from clinical psychology. For example, ADHD. ADHD, one of the most popular labels, probably the most popular label for Black boys in America, even more popular than the learning disability. ADHD is not a special ed disability. ADHD is a clinical disorder. It is a mental illness. It's not special ed. But a lot of children end up in special ed for ADHD because the parents, you guys, like telling the school all of your business. And that's one of the first things I want to kind of impress upon you. You have to stop telling your family business to teachers and to schools. Schools are not on your side and they are not your friend. And you need to understand that, okay? The only way a child can be put in special education for ADHD is if the parent makes the school aware that the child has been diagnosed with ADHD. So if you say my son is in special ed for ADHD, I know that that's because you talk too much. They could not have put him in special ed unless you told them, because we do not diagnose ADHD in the school. ADHD is not a special ed disorder. Conduct disorder is not special ed. Oppositional defiant disorder is not special ed. Those are mental illnesses. They get diagnosed outside of school. In school, diagnoses, or what we call special ed, are the prerogative of school psychology. And there's only 13 of those. Now, mental disorders come out of this book. This is the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So ADHD comes out of this book. But this book is not special ed. This book is not school psychology. This book is clinical psychology. This is your depressions, your bipolars, your borderlines, your ADHDs, your schizophrenia, mental illness. There's over 400 of these. But special ed is only 13. What are the 13 special ed disabilities? And we'll go through them. The first one, and they're in no order, the learning disability. The learning disability is the most popular diagnosis in special education. The learning disability is the greatest weapon of mass destruction against Black children. The learning disability comes in 8 types. 8 types. You can no longer just be LD. You must be LD in one of 8 areas. Basic reading skill, reading fluency, reading comprehension. Basic reading skill, can your child decode words? Can they break words down? Do they have word attack skills? Reading fluency, can your child read smoothly? Can they read at the rate of conversational language? Reading comprehension, can your child pull meaning from the words he's reading? Can he read a paragraph and understand what the paragraph is saying? If you don't have basic reading skill, you don't become fluent. You don't read smoothly. If you don't read smoothly, you never learn how to comprehend. Comprehension is built on fluency, and fluency is built on skill. And then you have math reasoning, the child's ability to determine the appropriate math operation to perform and then to perform it. Reasoning, your child has to think to determine, what do I do with this information to get the answer? Math reasoning. Black children struggle with math reasoning because they don't like to think. And schools don't help because most subjects in school do not require you to think. They only require you to memorize and regurgitate. That's one of the reasons why math and science is such a challenge for our children. Number one, they're lazy. Number two, you don't push them. And number three, the schools, okay, do not make them think. Most subjects you can get an A, straight A's in school, and never think, because school isn't about thinking. School is about being taught how to think. It's an indoctrination system, not an intellectual system, and we got to understand that. So you have math reasoning, and then you have math calculations. Can the child add, subtract, divide, multiply? Basic math, okay? Then you have written expression. Can your child write effectively? And then we have oral expression. Can your child speak effectively? okay, without stuttering or anything like that, without losing their track of thought. And then you have listening comprehension. Can your child understand what is being said, assuming they're fluent in the English language? Okay. So those are the 8 types of one disability, the learning disability. 8 types. Okay. So if you tell me your child has a learning disability, my next question is which one? And most of us don't know. We don't know our children's paperwork. We don't know the diagnosis. And that's how and why schools are able to so effectively miseducate Black children, because a lot of times Black parents are not organized. We are not organized. Okay? If you have a child, you should have a notebook on that child. Some place where you keep a running record of everything that goes on in the school. If the teacher calls, you write it down. I don't care if it's good or bad. She may call to simply say your son came late to school today. Did that go into your notebook? Date, time, and what was said? Things that you think are irrelevant can become very relevant as they pile up. So that takes me to my next point, which is a lazy Black parent is like having no parent at all. If you're raising Black children, you cannot afford to be lazy, but a lot of us are. And I'm just going to be real honest here tonight. A lot of us are very trifling, and a lot of us are very lazy. I routinely come across Black parents who will put their child in special education and never even follow up on the child to see how they're doing in school. Absolutely unacceptable. Why would you sentence your child to a life of miseducation and then not even go and look out for the child? In the school districts, they rely on your ignorance. The school districts, they rely on you not being interested. Okay? This is important to know too, because Black parents have a history of not fighting for their children. We have a history. We're the easiest people to special educate our children. We're the easiest people to influence, to have our kids put on medicine. Very easy. We go along with whatever schools say, and we have to stop that because it's hurting our children. The next diagnosis is mental retardation, which is now called the intellectual disability. President Obama changed the name in 2009 from mental retardation to intellectual disability. This is a child with significant below average intellectual function. Okay? Now, Black boys in America are 4 times as likely as white boys to be diagnosed with mental retardation when they do not have it. So if anyone in here ever gets an evaluation from the school or otherwise that tells you your child is mentally retarded, I want you to get that report to me. And before we're done here tonight, you'll have my contact information, my fax number. You fax it to me so I can look at it, because Black boys are routinely misdiagnosed as retarded when they're not. And because we're so easy as Black parents, we're very easy to get over on. We'll just take some white person's opinion of our child and go running with it. Which takes me to another point. Stop sharing these diagnoses with your children. What good is going to come from you telling your son he has a reading disability? What are you looking to gain from that? What are you looking to gain from telling your daughter she has a math disability? What are you looking to gain? What are you looking to gain telling your son he has ADHD, an excuse not to have any self-control? What are you looking to gain? It's amazing how we just go running around sharing these titles with our children. Y'all have to stop doing that, because the title becomes a glass ceiling that the child manufactures in their mind, over which they resolve themselves to not be able to achieve. If you told me I have a reading disability, why try? Mommy said I'm reading disabled. Daddy said I'm math disabled. Grandma said I got ADHD, so I'm not supposed to be able to control my behavior. Understand this. Every label we use, whether it comes out of this book, clinical psychology, or special ed, school psychology, every label we use, parents, is nothing more than a professional opinion. It's an opinion. It's an opinion. It is not a fact. It's an opinion. Your child having a reading disability, it's an opinion. ADHD, it's an opinion. It's not a fact. That's something you believe. Why are you sharing it with your child? You believe that. That's not your child's reality. That's your reality. My son is special ed for emotional disturbance. That's not no fact. How do you prove emotional disturbance? There ain't no blood test for that. How do you prove ADHD? Ain't no urine sample for that. How do you prove the learning disability? There's no x-ray for that. How you prove mild mental retardation? There's no CAT scan for that. So I need all of y'all to understand in here, number one, you don't tell children their disorders. And number two, keep in mind that the labels are nothing more than the opinion of the person who tested your child. One person tests your child, it's a learning disability. Another person tests your child, it's ADHD. Another person tests your child, it's an adjustment disorder. Fourth person tests your child, which is probably me, and I'm going to give them the accurate diagnosis. Ain't been to hell taught and lazy as hell. Okay? That's normally what it is for our children. 85% of the children I test, and I test every race, color, and creed, but of course I'm focused on my own community, but 85% of the kids I test have nothing wrong with them. Nothing. They lazy as hell, and the parents are too. 85% of them. He can't read. Sure, he can read. He chooses not to learn, and there's no consequences at home when he doesn't try. There's no consequences at school when he doesn't try. And the worst thing for a black child to have is a lazy teacher and a lazy parent. Worst thing they can have. Neither adult in their life gives a shit. Excuse my French. That's the worst combination you can have. And a lot of our children have that combination. They have a lazy parent at home, and they got a lazy teacher in school. And that's why special ed is so big now. It's the scapegoat.